Thunderbirds.
Ah, Thunderbirds.
We got a whole stack of stuff to get through. So are you ready to explore the history, the impact,
Oh, absolutely.
the legacy of this iconic sci-fi show?
Let's go.
All right, let's go. First things first, Thunderbirds. What is it?
Well, Thunderbirds is a show set in the future, the 2060s to be exact.
The future, huh?
Yeah, and it follows the adventures of the Tracy family.
Okay.
They run this organization called International Rescue.
International Rescue.
And they use all these super cool advanced vehicles
Oh, the vehicle.
to, you guessed it, rescue people from all sorts of disasters.
And of course, you can't talk about Thunderbirds without mentioning the man behind it all, Jerry Anderson.
Oh, absolutely, a visionary. Back in the 1960s, he used this revolutionary technique called supermarionation to bring the show to life.
Supermarionation.
Yep. They were basically marionettes, but electronically controlled, gave them a level of movement and detail that nobody had ever seen before with puppets.
It's funny you should say electronically controlled marionettes because I read somewhere that some of the puppeteers likened it to surgery.
I believe it. The precision required was immense.
And, I think that really comes across on screen. I mean, even today, all these years later, those effects still have this charm about them.
Oh, absolutely. There's a real handcrafted quality to it, something you just don't get with, say, CGI.
Imagine this. You need to reach any disaster anywhere on Earth in under an hour.
A tall order.
Or maybe plunge into the deepest depths of the ocean for a daring rescue.
Or even keep a watchful eye on the entire planet from space.
Yeah, it's fascinating how Thunderbirds went beyond just showcasing those amazing vehicles.
Right.
Like, it envisioned a world where technology could be used for good, especially in the hands of international rescue.
It's like they were more than just machines.
Totally.
Yeah.
They were symbols of hope and human ingenuity. It's like no matter what disaster strikes, international rescue would be there with the right tool for the job.
And speaking of the right tool, we got to start with the heart of their fleet, Thunderbird 2.
Oh yeah, Thunderbird 2. The big green bird.
It wasn't just a plane, it was a total marvel of engineering.
What always blew my mind was that variable geometry.
Right, like it could take off and land vertically like a helicopter.
Yeah. But then, whoosh, transform into this sleek aircraft for, like, supersonic flight.
And that variable geometry wasn't just for looks,
Totally agree.
It was a real reflection of what aviation engineers were aiming for back then. Like they were trying to create aircraft that could do it all.
And speaking of doing it all, we can't forget those modular pods. That was genius.
Oh, those pods were incredible. Each mission needed a different response, right?
Right.
And Thunderbird 2 was always ready, with pods tailored for everything.
Seriously, everything. From underwater rescues to transporting heavy machinery. It's like they anticipated the whole modular design thing we see everywhere today.
Smartphones, spacecraft, you name it.
It's like the ultimate Swiss Army knife of rescue vehicles. And I love how they even thought about the color.
That green
Yeah. It wasn't just a random choice. It was picked specifically to stand out.
against the blue skies and ocean.
Exactly. Making it instantly recognizable.
Form and function in perfect harmony.
Now, of course, we can't leave out the rest of the fleet.
Right.
Thunderbird 3, the rocket built for those daring space rescues.
And the design was so ahead of its time, it launches vertically, straight up, and it's a single stage-to-orbit design. SSTO.
SSTO, meaning it doesn't have to shed parts like some rockets to reach orbit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's incredibly complex even today. Pretty ambitious for a show from the 1960s.
You'd think Jerry Anderson had a time machine, but here's something funny. There's some debate about Thunderbird 3's actual size.
Oh,
In one episode, Jeff Tracy says it's 287 feet tall.
okay.
But in an interview, Brains, the one who designed it, says it's only 200 feet.
So which is it? It's those little mysteries that make Thunderbirds so charming, you know?
Totally. Even genius inventors like Brains can make mistakes, right? But size aside, let's talk about how this thing actually flies. Thunderbird 3 uses chemical rockets for launch. Pretty standard.
Right.
But then it switches to an ion drive for space travel.
Ion drive.
Yeah.
Super efficient, perfect for long journeys in space, just like in the show.
Blending futuristic ideas with puppets and models, it must have been mind-blowing back then.
The Rapid Response Rocket Plane. Thunderbird 1, the first responder. It can reach any spot on the globe, well, probably faster than you can finish your coffee.
Way faster. It clocks in at a mind-boggling 15,000 miles per hour.
15,000.
That's Mach 19.7.
Mach 19.7. To put that in perspective, that's like traveling from New York to LA in about 5 minutes.
More or less.
Wow. That speed, it's crucial, right, for their mission.
Absolutely. It's all about reaching any disaster zone within that golden hour.
Makes sense. But it's not just raw speed.
No, you need maneuverability too.
Yeah, you got to navigate all sorts of crazy terrain and weather.
Exactly. And that's where those variable geometry wings come in.
Ah, the wings, right. I've always wondered about those.
Well, they can actually adjust their shape, for optimal performance at both subsonic and supersonic speeds.
Okay, I'm following.
It's a technology that's used in real-world aircraft. Like, think of the F-14 Tomcat.
Oh, yeah, I see. So by changing the sweep angle of the wings?
Exactly. Thunderbird 1 can get maximum lift at low speeds for takeoff and landing.
Makes sense.
But then it can seamlessly transition to a super streamlined shape for supersonic flight.
So it's like two planes in one.
Pretty much. It's really a marvel of aeronautical engineering.
And let's not forget the launch sequence. Talk about iconic. From a secret base hidden beneath a swimming pool.
On a tropical island, no less.
Who wouldn't want that in their backyard?
Right. It's all about secrecy and that rapid deployment. Got to be ready to launch at a moment's notice.
And who's usually at the helm?
Well, usually it's Scott Tracy, but Alan steps in when needed.
Gotta mention the uninvited. That's where Thunderbird 1 gets shot down, remember? By those zombite fighters.
Oh, yeah. And Scott had to rely on the kindness of strangers.
Shows that even the best tech can be vulnerable. Sometimes it's human compassion that saves the day.
Exactly.
So we've seen the speed demon of the skies, Thunderbird 1. But what about those rescues that happen under the waves?
That's where Thunderbird 4 comes in.
The underwater specialist.
Hmm.
And talk about teamwork. This one really embodies that international rescue spirit.
Absolutely. Thunderbird 4, it's actually the smallest of the main vehicles, and it's usually tucked away inside Thunderbird 2.
Ready to go at a moment's notice.
Shows their strategic thinking. Thunderbird 2, it's like a mothership, carrying all that specialized equipment for whatever the mission calls for, including, of course, those underwater rescues.
I've always wondered, why not let Thunderbird 4 operate on its own? Like Thunderbird 1.
That's an interesting thought. I mean, it's highly capable, but it's not designed for those long hauls or rapid deployment.
Ah, I see.
It's fast for a submersible, sure, but compared to the others. Remember, Thunderbird 2 was out of commission, and they had to use that Navy vessel, the Sentinel, to transport Thunderbird 4.
Oh, yeah. It really highlighted how important Thunderbird 2 is as that carrier.
It's a good example of how each vehicle has its specific role. It's about having the right tool for the job.
In knowing how it all fits into the bigger picture.
Yeah.
But even though it usually hitches a ride with Thunderbird 2, it does have those cool solo launches.
Oh, yeah, like in Terror in New York City, where it slides right into the ocean from Tracy Island.
Straight off the runway. Talk about a dramatic entrance.
And don't forget, it's packed with tools. Lasers to cut through debris, electromagnets for heavy lifting, demolition rockets, even battering rams.
It's a toolbox on steroids.
Yeah.
It's a small but mighty machine. So we've covered the ocean depths. Now, let's go to the final frontier. Space. Thunderbird 5, the watchful eye in the sky. The biggest of them all.
Keeping an eye on the entire planet.
Talk about a big job. It's a fully operational space station orbiting Earth, listening for distress calls.
Always on alert.
And when we say large, we mean large. Thunderbird 5 is 400 feet long, 300 feet wide, and 272 feet tall.
Bigger than a football field.
How does one person even keep that thing running?
That's where the brilliance in our engineering comes in. Thunderbird 5 is loaded with automation. It can be run by a single crew member.
Wow. And who's that lucky crew member?
Usually John Tracy.
The Mill Tracy brother, right.
Yeah.
He's up there, orbiting Earth, day in and day out, always on the lookout.
It's a demanding role, but he does get a break now and then. Alan takes over sometimes, so John can get some much-needed R&R.
Good, good. I mean, imagine the mental strength it takes. Being isolated up there, constantly looking for emergencies.
It's the human element, right? Even with all that tech, International Rescue recognizes their people are the most valuable asset.
Couldn't agree more. It makes you appreciate the sacrifices they make, always ready to jump into action. Speaking of iconic, we got to talk about Lady Penelope.
Lady Penelope, International Rescue's London agent.
That's the one. But is she a trailblazer or a product of her time?
That's a question that's been debated for years.
And what's the verdict?
Well, it's complicated. Some people see her as a strong, capable woman who uses her intelligence and connections to help international rescue.
I mean, she is a skilled driver. She even has her own customized pink Rolls-Royce.
Exactly. But others argue that she's still a product of 1960s societal norms. They say she's often relegated to a more passive role and doesn't get as much action as the male characters.
Yeah, I can see both sides of that argument. I mean, you can't deny that she's a bit of a fashion icon.
And she's not afraid to use her charm and wit to get what she wants.
True, but she does often need rescuing herself.
Which is interesting because in the episode The Perils of Penelope, she actually manages to escape a trap and outsmart her captors.
Ooh, good point. She's definitely more complex than she appears at first glance.
Exactly. And that's what makes her such a fascinating character.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
But going back to the heroes, did the Thunderbirds machines just entertain, or did they actually have, like, a lasting impact beyond the screen?
Oh, they definitely had a lasting impact.
What kind of impact, do you think?
Well, for one thing, they inspired generations of engineers, designers, and sci-fi fans, for sure.
I can definitely see that.
Remember Thunderbird 2's variable geometry? We talked about that.
Yeah, the transforming thing.
Well, that concept is becoming reality now
Yeah.
with the development of VTOL aircraft.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
The show really sparked a fascination with technology and its potential to solve problems and improve our lives.
It's incredible to think a TV show could have that kind of real-world impact.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing.
We can't forget the music of Thunderbirds. That theme song is instantly recognizable, a total classic.
It's iconic. Even Gray himself loved the themes he wrote for these shows. He said Secret Service was his favorite opening theme out of all the Anderson series.
Interesting. But you can't deny the impact of the Thunderbirds theme. Those horns, that driving beat, pure adventure.
It sets the scene perfectly, gets you ready for action.
Has there ever been anyone who doesn't like this theme? Hard to imagine, right?
Definitely. It's that catchy. It captures the heroism, the adventure, the spirit of the show.
I wanted to shift gears for a minute and talk about something really cool, the fan love for Thunderbirds.
Oh yeah, the nostalgia factor is huge.
It's incredible, right?
How was Thunderbirds received back in the day?
Well, when it first came out, the critics were pretty positive.
Really?
Yeah, they praised the special effects, they thought super marionation was groundbreaking,
As we've discussed.
and they appreciated the show's, sense of adventure. But later on, the reviews got a bit more nuanced.
So?
Some critics pointed out that the characters could be a bit two-dimensional sometimes, and the plots, well, sometimes they were a bit formulaic.
Formulaic, uh-huh. But despite that, Thunderbird still has a huge fan base today, right?
Oh, absolutely. Enormous. And it seems to be attracting new fans all the time. There was an interesting piece in Dreamwatch magazine where Andrew Thomas talks about the show's universal themes.
Like what?
Courage, family, the responsible use of technology. These are things that resonate with people no matter what age they are.
And Brian Viner wrote in 2000 about how the show was attracting a new generation of fans even before the BBC remastered it.
Exactly. It proves that the show's core themes and ideas have stood the test of time.
And that cultural impact is undeniable.
Right.
The merchandise, the toys, the theme music, it's iconic. But it's not just about the big flashy vehicles, right? Thunderbirds 1, 2, and 3. They've got a whole network of support vehicles, too.
The unsung heroes.
Like FAB-1.
Lady Penelope's pink Rolls Royce.
The workhorse on the ground. Transportation, recon, even the occasional distraction.
And all those other vehicles for ground transport, reconnaissance, communication. They might not be as exciting as the Thunderbirds, but they're essential.
It's the practical side of international rescue. You can have all the fancy tech in the world, but sometimes you just need a reliable ride.
It's all teamwork. Every role matters. Every vehicle is important. The Thunderbirds get the glory, but they wouldn't be nearly as effective without that support network.
And speaking of unsung heroes, what about Brains? He may not pilot any of the vehicles, but without him, no international rescue.
He's the brains behind the operation. Literally.
Yeah.
The inventor, the engineer.
He's the one pushing those boundaries of technology.
Designing and building vehicles that are years, decades ahead of their time. Brains. He's a reminder that it's not just about the machines, it's about the people who create them. The people dedicated to making the world a safer place.
The human element is so important to international rescue. It's not just cool vehicles and gadgets.
It's about the people who operate them, the bravery, the dedication, the compassion.
That's what makes them so inspiring.
In those YouTube comments, people were sharing how this show impacted them even decades later.
Some were saying how it takes them right back to their childhood. One person even described the palm trees swaying on Tracy Island as Thunderbird 2 took off.
Wow, talk about a vivid memory.
Right, and someone else said they still get chills watching the show, even after all these years.
Amazing. And it's not just people who grew up with it either. There were younger viewers who discovered it later and are just as hooked.
It's a testament to the show's enduring appeal, it really is.
It really is. So what do you think it is about Thunderbirds that makes it so timeless?
Well, it's more than just the cool gadgets and the action, although those are definitely a big part of it.
Of course, you can't go wrong with rockets and rescues.
Exactly. But at its heart, Thunderbirds is about courage and ingenuity. It's about people using technology to help others, no matter the risk.
And that idea of international cooperation, everyone working together.
Absolutely, the world coming together to face these incredible challenges. And let's not forget the importance of family.
The Tracy brothers, always there for each other.
Exactly. That family bond adds a layer of warmth and humanity to the whole show. It makes the characters even more relatable, the stakes even higher. It's what makes Thunderbirds so special.
It really does. Which brings us to our final thought for today. Given how much people still love Thunderbirds, do you think a show with puppets and miniatures could still work today? Would it need a complete makeover, or could it capture that same magic?
That's a great question. It's a different world now than in the 1960s, right? We're used to seeing all this CGI, these super realistic special effects.
So you're thinking the visuals might need an update for a modern audience?
Possibly. But then again, there's something so charming about those old school techniques, the artistry of those miniatures. Maybe a modern version could find a way to blend the old with the new.
I like that kind of fusion of styles.
Yeah, pay homage to the original while still feeling fresh and exciting.
Exactly. What about the stories themselves? Do you think those themes we talked about, the courage, the cooperation, the family bond, would they still resonate with today's viewers?
I think those are timeless themes. The world still faces huge challenges that require global solutions, and the idea of family, of human connection, will always be relevant.
And those themes were at the core of Thunderbirds. A modern version could explore those ideas in new ways, reflecting the world we live in today. I mean, imagine what they'd do with a modern Thunderbird 3.
Oh, that's fun to think about.
Right. Sleek, futuristic, with all the latest tech, maybe even AI or those advanced space travel concepts we're just starting to understand.
A Thunderbird 3 capable of interstellar travel. Now that would be something. Pushing the boundaries of what we think is possible.
It would be incredible. And who knows, maybe it could inspire a whole new generation, just like the original did. Get people excited about science and engineering again.
That would be amazing to see that kind of impact. It all goes back to what Jerry Anderson created this show, that blended action and heart in a way that still inspires us.
Absolutely. Wrapping up our deep dive into the Thunderbirds machines, I'm honestly left feeling kind of inspired.
Me too, actually.
They were more than just vehicles. They were symbols of ingenuity, teamwork, and, that belief in a brighter future.
Exactly. And it's a message that still resonates today.
It makes you think. If you could design a Thunderbird vehicle for today's world, what challenges would it address?
That's a good question.
And what would make it visually iconic?
What would your Thunderbird look like?
Yeah. Something to think about, everyone.
Definitely.
Until next time.